It's 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday, and the sky looks like this, which is actually very promising after last 3 days of constant rain. And I'm heading over for a shoot, actually bird walk, to Tommy Thompson Park. It's a conservation area near the Toronto port, and I just discovered its existence yesterday thanks to Google. And also what I'm doing today is testing my new lens, because I switched from my Nikon 200 to 500 to a Tamron, the first generation 150 to 600 millimeter f5 to 6.3. And the reason being, it's much cheaper, it's lighter, and it has a longer focus range. And I'm still using my crop sensor Nikon D7200. So it's about an hour away, so I just stopped. I got up at 6 o'clock in Cambridge, Ontario. I just stopped to get some coffee here, get some water, and this basically it's a guided free walk. You know, you meet the guide like a volunteer at the entrance to the park, and there can be a bunch of people, and it's a artificial peninsula that sticks out 3 miles or 5 kilometers into Lake Ontario, and it's famous for its birds that land there and breed there on their way to the north, from the south to the north. And now being May, that's when they arrange all these bird walks. So I'm anxious to see what kind of birds they have and how my Tamron copes with it. Park over there on the right, it says Tommy Thompson Park, Toronto's urban wilderness. So the website said there's supposed to be people waiting at the gate, like the guide, and there's a parking lot in there, but to get to that you have to open the gate, and it's still closed. So still chilly. I have my winter coat on, and I'll be using a chest harness. And this is my new lens, and you see now, because it's smaller, it fits into my old bag. Let me just get it out. Say hello to my little friend. So this is it. Tamron 150 millimeter. It's pretty new. Just got it yesterday. And so much lighter. 25% lighter than Nikon. Longer reach, 600 millimeters, which on my Nikon is 900 millimeter actual, and $600 Canadian cheaper, which is like $450 US. Why not? Yeah, we were watching some bird in there far away, but it's too far and too small to take a picture. finally the clouds are going away and we can see the sun. It became warmer. Otherwise in the morning my hands were freezing. But I really like this lens for its lightweight, you know, and I put this piece like this on the top.
Actually, this one is not much branch as well.
Where is that? The Toronto downtown area from here. There's very nice views. Right, our guide is leading us somewhere into the bush towards the water. Let's see what we have there. Is it an alligator? No, I'm just trying to...
It's sat on a net.
Oh, this one. Jesus, I was trying to shoot the water. I didn't...
It's sat on a net.
Yeah, I didn't even see him. Cool.
Oh, she was walking down.
Okay, I'm back in Cambridge. Feel very tired. We walked probably... It was a very slow walk, but still, I think it was like almost 4 kilometers. 4 and then back, and we made some detours. But you know, you just walk like at the speed of a school kid, you know, and then you stop and you look for birds. But still, like so much time, probably like 4 hours on your feet. You know, and I just wanted to mention my settings. I used continuous shooting at slow speed, and the way I set it up is slow speed is 5 frames per second. The default is 3. I don't need 6. My camera D7200 goes up to 6.5, but then you have to sit and sift through hundreds of images. You know, 5 is okay, like that's what I find. 3 is too few, 6.5 is too many, 5, even 4 is fine. So that's what I shoot in continuous slow at 5 frames per second. Autofocus continuous with back button focusing, AFC, most of the time single point, but sometimes it was when it was difficult I would switch to 9 points. And you don't want more than that, because then, you know, when you see a bird in a tree, the camera will try to focus on a branch. And one extremely important setting in custom settings, at least on Nikon D7200 and Nikon cameras, is how long the camera waits to refocus. And the default setting is 3. And then you listen to all these gurus online and they say, oh, I don't use it, I just set it at 0. And what happens at 0, it means that as soon as you move the camera or something is in the background, the camera instantaneously refocuses on that. And I know why this guy is using this, like the guy that I picked this up from, because he's mostly shooting big animals or big birds in flight, and he sets it at 0 so that if he loses focus, the camera will, you know, get it back right away. But one circumstance that happened, you know, over and over again was that when I was watching birds in a tree or on the grass, and when the refocusing is set to 0 seconds delay, which is immediate, as soon as there's a little branch, let's say there's a bird, right, and I focus on the bird, and then the bird sits there, but you know, they're crazy, they move like this, right, and I focus on the bird. As soon as I press the shutter, like I back photos with my thumb, and as soon as I press the shutter, the bird moves a little bit, and there's a tiny little branch or a grass or, you know, small piece of grass in there, and the camera instantaneously refocuses on that. And so I went back to 1 second delay, then 2, and then I said screw this, and I just got back to default, which is 3 seconds. so what happens is that you focus on the bird. If the bird moves, the camera does not switch focus right away, and I find that that's very useful. And that setting, I don't think many people pay attention to that, but that setting is very important. So it's in settings in autofocus mode, and I shot, as many experts online advised, in aperture priority, because you want to keep your aperture as you know, as big as possible, like the low number, because especially on a crop sensor camera, right, you need all the light you can get, and it makes it easier for the camera to for the lens to focus. So I was shooting mostly at 5, but because my Tamron 150-600 has a variable aperture, that was not a problem. I would set it at 5, and then when I zoom out, or I mean zoom in, it'll switch to, you know, 5.5, 6.3, whatever was the smallest possible, and 6.3 I think is the smallest possible at the full zoom. And then when I zoom back, it would switch back to 5. And then I used the auto ISO, or ISO as some people say it, and I set it up. The minimum was I think 350, and the maximum was 2000. So at 350, it still would give me a very nice quick shutter speed. So I never had a problem with quick moving birds. It's just that it's pretty much impossible to frame them. You know, put them in a frame. Like, where is it? You know, it's like I'm zooming out, and this bird flies like 10 meters above my head. I cannot see it in the camera. Like, by the time I have to drop the camera from my eye, find the bird, leave the camera, and by the time I do all that, it's gone. So, and what else? So aperture priority, continuous focusing, 5 frames per second. Yeah, one thing I was struggling with, because it was a cloudy day, but still the sky is in the back, right? Like there was no sun, so I could shot in any direction. But you know, these birds, at first I was only shooting like smaller birds, and most of them were dark in color, sitting in dark branches, you know. And so I was using matrix, like, you know, standard matrix metering, or I think it's called pattern, or average in Canon, like the default one. And then I would use the exposure compensation, look at the, you know, histogram in the back, and just shoot to the right, as they say, move the highlights to the right. But I experimented with different metering modes, and like some people online say that quite often they use spot metering. And I tried that one and actually had better luck, even without exposure compensation. You know, like when you shooting a small bird, you know, just try to find its eye, right? And spot metering worked much better than matrix metering. But then when I was shooting birds, or I was trying to shoot birds against the bright background, I still had to use exposure compensation. But I'm going to stick to spot metering for birds. So unless I'm shooting landscape, then yeah, matrix is fine. But when you shoot like a single object quickly moving like that, spot metering works better. Oh yeah, and so like I said, yeah, I use single spot focusing. And what's funny is that since it was very difficult to catch flying birds, most of the time I could have just got away with a regular regular focusing, not continuous, you know. But they do move a little bit, you know. They look at you, they turn the head, so it does help. And then when I find the focus, I can take my thumb off, and I know that it's in focus, and then I can just wait for the right moment when it turns its head, you know. So it was cool, but all in all, it was very it was tiring, but very entertaining. And quite often I would miss a bird, and then the guide, and then there was another guy who probably was doing these walks all the time, some civilian, not the guide, but this guy, he had a good ear, and he could hear birds sing, and whenever he heard, you know, particular song, he knew this was some kind of special bird, so we start looking for that bird. And so highly recommend it. So if you guys have some kind of a wildlife, like a conservation area where you live, check it out. You know, there can be free maps, there can be free guides. Like in this time, it was all free. And usually these people, the guys, they know a lot, and they're just volunteers. You know, they don't even paid for this. And it's amazing what you can find right in your backyard. Like in this case, just a couple of minutes away from downtown Toronto. Anyway, here's some pics. I took a bunch of pictures. I know at 5 frames per second. The card fills up, and here's what I liked, and this is what I can post here. So enjoy.